Japan is one of the best countries to explore as a tourist. It is a country full of amazing things to do, like take in amazing sights, indulge in delicious food, and experience one of the world's most unique cultures and societies. However, there are several important things you need to know that stand between you and your perfect trip in Japan. So today, I'm going to go over 7 essential things you need to know before you arrive in Japan. Missing just one of these tips could really put a damper on your trip, or worse, end your trip to Japan before it even begins. So make sure you watch to the end, because I also snuck in a quick 8th tip at the end as a bonus. Yes, I know. It's clickbait because I'm essentially going over 8 things, not 7. I hope you can forgive me. Anyways, let's get started, so you can plan your perfect trip to Japan. Number 1, Japan entry requirements. Knowing all the entry requirements is vital for getting into Japan. As the title suggests, if you don't meet the requirements, you can be turned around at the airport and sent home. But don't worry. As scary as that sounds, it's actually pretty straightforward and easy. The most important requirement to enter Japan is you need to be vaccinated at least 3 times, and your vaccinations must be included on the World Health Organization's approved emergency use list. If you aren't vaccinated, you need to have a negative PCR test within 72 hours of your flight. Whichever method you choose, both will need to have proper identifying information. So make sure all the information matches your passport, and make sure your vaccine or PCR documentation has everything required by the Japanese government to enter. If you want to see all of the information required for your COVID documentation, refer to the website I have linked below. To help make this whole process easier, Japan has created the Visit Japan website, which allows you to input all your information for COVID, immigration, and customs. Once your information gets approved, a QR code will be generated for each section of your profile. These QR codes can be used to quickly pass through all the checkpoints Japan's airports will have waiting for you. This is just a quick summary of all the Japan entry requirements you need to know. For more details regarding all the entry requirements Japan has, check out this video. Or if you want to see what it's like entering Japan firsthand, check out this video. Although this can make or break your trip to Japan, the remaining items on this list can also ruin your trip if you don't know them. So let's keep going. Number 2, Wi-Fi versus SIM cards. When visiting Japan, it is essential you have data for your phone at all times. If you don't have your phone to navigate your way around, cities like Tokyo or Kyoto could quickly become a hopeless maze. But the obvious question that follows is, which is the better data option? Portable Wi-Fi or a SIM card? Well, in order to answer that question, let's break down the pros and cons for each one and decide at the end. Starting off with the SIM card, the biggest advantages are, it is more convenient as it's stored in your phone, it is slightly cheaper than mobile Wi-Fi, and it generally performs better in major cities. Now for the downsides. It takes more effort to calibrate your device with the SIM card, connection can be spotty outside major cities, and SIM cards are more restrictive, as you can only use it on one phone and your phone needs to be unlocked to use them. Now for Wi-Fi, simply take the goods and bads about SIM cards and just flip them around. Nice. Now let's compare the two. While SIM cards are more convenient and don't need to be carried around and charged like portable Wi-Fi, they are very limiting, as you can only use it on one device at a time, unless you hotspot with the SIM card. But then you might as well have just gotten portable Wi-Fi anyways. If you're traveling to Japan solo, this might not be a big deal. But keep in mind, if your phone is not unlocked, then you won't be able to use SIM cards at all. However, if you're traveling with a group of people, portable Wi-Fi quickly becomes the better option. With portable Wi-Fi, you can share your data with as many people as you want. This means you can easily share the cost of the Wi-Fi with your travel group. At the end of the day, it all depends on your preferences. If you want something more convenient and you're traveling solo and only plan on needing data for your phone, then SIM cards might be for you. If you're traveling with a partner, friend, or group and want to split the cost of data while traveling Japan, then pocket Wi-Fi will definitely be the preferred method for you. Alright, now that we have a better idea of which is better for each situation, let's take a break from all of these comparisons and talk about something more simple but is just as important. Number 3, speaking slowly and using translation apps. Okay, contrary to popular belief by tourist websites, while Japanese people do know a little bit of English, the majority are certainly not at the point where you can speak fluently. And if you're going outside a major city, forget about it. If you try to speak English at a fluent level and speed, you will almost certainly confuse the majority of people you run into. But that's okay. The easy solution is to just speak slowly and simply. Whether it be asking a Japanese person for directions or to engage a local in conversation, be sure to use only very common English words and speak in a relaxed pace. Trust me, it is not offensive offensive to do this. If anything, it'll make them more comfortable to help you out, because they'll be more likely to pick up the common keywords you're using. Once you see how they respond, you can adjust the level of English you use accordingly. But if they still look confused, you can always pull out Google's translation app. And let me tell you, Google's translation app has come a long way in the past few years. You can either type or speak into the app, and just like magic, it instantly translates what you want into Japanese. However, as if you're talking to a person, try to stick with just using simple sentences, questions, and phrases. The simpler the sentence, the more precise Google's translation will be, thus giving the person you're talking to an easier time understanding you. Other cool features about Google's app is the ability to take a picture of a sign you want translated, which you can select right here. Speaking of Google, let's go over another essential Google tool you'll need in order to have a successful trip in Japan. Number 4, understanding Google Maps. Google Maps is easily the most important app you will need while in Japan. This map has everything you need to navigate any city, no matter how big or small. I can make an entire video about how to effectively utilize Google Maps, which I might do in the future. But for now, I'm just gonna cover the most important part you need to know, which is how to navigate trains with Google Maps. When using Japan's train stations, the most important thing is to make sure you're headed to the right station according to Google Maps, and then getting to the right platform located here. Then follow the signs for that platform. Once there, you have to make sure you get on the right train. Now, while you can try and figure it out based on whether it's an express or local, or if it's headed to the right station, I have found a much easier way to get it right. All you have to do is make sure the departure time on Google Maps matches the time displayed on the board for that platform. If time and platform matches, you're 100% on the right train and on your way. And if you have to transfer to another train, simply rinse and repeat what I mentioned before. Once you've gotten comfortable navigating with Google Maps, you can start using the more advanced features like knowing when last train is, or figuring out the exact time you want to arrive somewhere. Finally, once you get to your stop, you'll need to pay close attention to the signs and exits to make sure you get out at the right spot, which you can find on these big yellow signs throughout any train station. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see a full breakdown of how to use Google Maps. Well, in the meantime, let's move on to our next essential tip. Number 5, proper shoes and footwear. I cannot emphasize this enough. Whether you're in the countryside or the middle of Tokyo, you will be walking a lot. Here, let me put it into perspective for you. So, I'm a big fan of my Garmin fitness watch. In fact, I've been wearing it every day for the past 3 years, which means I've been accurately logging my steps as well. To compare, when I was in the United States last July, I walked about 217,000 steps, or about 100 miles. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, in July this year, I walked 325,000 steps in Japan, which is about 164 miles. So I walked 150% more in Japan than I did in the States. And you could pick any month I was in the States compared to Japan, and you'd see the same trend. And when you're visiting in Japan, expect to walk just as much. Well, maybe not 164 miles, but you get my point. That being said, make sure you bring along a pair of great walking shoes that have excellent support. If you don't have a pair, I highly recommend you buy one before coming here. And if you currently have a pair, consider buying new ones if those are starting to look old. I guarantee you'll get your money's worth. Also, if you plan on visiting Japan in June or July, I highly recommend bringing some waterproof boots or shoes. June and July are known to be the rainy months of Japan, and it's never a fun time to walk around the whole day with soggy shoes or socks. So make sure you plan accordingly. Number 6, Suica cards and JR Shinkansen passes. Trains are by far the most popular form of transportation in Japan. And if you're using local trains, the easiest and by far most recommended way to do it is to buy a Suica or Pasmo card at the train station. In fact, this is one of the first things you want to buy as soon as you land. Every station provides this option, and it is super easy to do. Just find the station that says Suica or Pasmo, choose the amount you want to charge the card with, and that's it. There are apps out there where you can have an electronic version of this card if you just want to keep everything on your phone. However, I personally prefer using the physical card, as having the physical card is much more reliable and less of a hassle. For one, you don't ever have to worry about it running out of battery, and they're pretty durable. I still use the first one that I bought 5 years ago. While some JR Shinkansen passes will include the use of local trains, it is best to have a Pasmo or Suica card handy, as these passes will not cover metros or any local line that is not JR. Speaking of JR trains, let's go over some of these JR Shinkansen passes I've been talking about. While I could create an entire video just discussing all of the different passes you can get, which you I'll probably do later, I'm only going to cover the essential information for now. JR Shinkansen passes are special tickets, allowing you to use certain Shinkansen rails or local trains for a certain period of time. The most well-known pass amongst tourists is the JR Rail Pass. This special pass is designed for tourists, allowing you to use any Shinkansen or JR line in Japan, with some slight exceptions that are noted on their websites. The only downside is how expensive it is. While this is the most famous pass, there are cheaper options that could be more suited to what you have planned. For example, if you want to just take a quick trip to the Gunma mountain range, or you only plan on heading north towards Hokkaido, then the Tokyo-wide or Tohoku Pass will be more cost-efficient and better suit your needs. These are just a couple examples. If you buy a Shinkansen pass of any kind, you will need to either pick it up at a ticket office in major train stations, like this one, or you can pick it up at any one of these Shinkansen booths. They even have an English option, making the whole process relatively straightforward. Well, all this talk about money and paying for things is a great way to segue into my 7th topic. Number 7. Getting money before arriving. Taking out money and exchanging it for yen before you arrive really depends on your situation. However, as someone that has come here before as a tourist and now as a resident, I really never felt the need to exchange money before I arrived. And for the majority of people, your situation will be like mine, where you can wait until you arrive in Japan to withdraw any money. This is because at every airport, you can withdraw yen as soon as you land. Just head over to any 7-Eleven or Family Mart you see at the airport, and they will most likely have an ATM ready to go. But Alex, the yen is so weak right now. I want to cash in my opportunity before it goes up in value. While it is true that the yen is weak right now, that doesn't mean it's going to affect what it does tomorrow. It could be worth more or less in a week, a month, or a year from now. This is because of how unpredictable the world economy is right now, let alone Japan's economy. So that means just because the yen might seem weak today, doesn't mean it won't be weaker the next day. Putting aside the volatility, the other risk of carrying around a ton of money is you run the unlikely, but still possible, risk of misplacing it. Or worse, someone stealing your wallet or purse with all that money in it. With all that being said, I would recommend just waiting until you get to Japan before taking out any money. But Alex, when I get to Japan, what's the best ATM I can pull money out of? Well, I'm glad you asked, because it's time to move on to the bonus tip I was talking about from the beginning. Number 8, which is the best ATM? Despite most of the world going digital and using credit cards, Japan still relies heavily on cash. But don't worry, Japan's 3 main convenience stores, Family Mart, Lawson, and 7-Eleven, have ATMs where you can pull out yen no problem. While you might already know that, do you know which one's the best to get money from? Well, I took out 10,000 yen from each ATM to get the answer. And here's what I got. Each ATM charges a fee for conducting an international transaction. 7-Eleven and Lawson both charge only 110 yen, but Family Mart charge 220. So Family Mart already takes last place. Then I looked at the exchange rate. Both Lawson and 7-Eleven had the same exchange rate, so they're still tied. However, I have had times where certain Lawsons rejected my card for not being a Japanese debit card, whereas at 7-Eleven, I never had that issue. So 7-Eleven takes first place. So when you travel to Japan, make sure to remember this bonus tip to save you the most money. I hope these tips helped you feel more comfortable about your upcoming trip to Japan. If you want to see things to do in Tokyo, click right here. Also, check out my profile on this new app called THATCH, where I can help plan your next trip to Japan. Link is in the description below. Alright, well until next time, I'll see you then.